Good evening, everyone. I'm gonna let you all take a second to get seated. Good evening, everyone. I'm gonna let you all take a second to get seated.
To the opioid crisis.
But we are gonna meet tonight about solutions
to the opioid
and I
crisis.
am here with Spencer Flider.
My name is Houston.
Good to see you.
Good to see you
And
too,
I am
Spence. Always a
here
pleasure.
with Spencer Flider.
Good to see you, Houston.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Spence. Always a pleasure.
So next slide. Once again, I'll be your host. My name is Houston Spoor. I am Director of Community Relations for Project. Once again, I'll be your host. My name is Houston. I am a proud father. I am Director of Community Relations for Project. Most importantly, I'm proud of. I am a proud father, proud husband for over 5+. Most importantly, I'm proud of being in long-term recovery. And let me tell you a little bit more about what Project Opioid does. Project Opioid is a coalition of business-facing philanthropic leaders that come together. Project Opioid is a coalition of business-facing philanthropic leaders that come together to help eradicate the opioid crisis. So let's look at how we got to this point. COVID-19 has been let's look at how we got to this point with the number of COVID-19 has been a gaslight, has truly pushed the mental health crisis and substance abuse overdose crisis into the worst mental health crisis and substance abuse overdose crisis into the worst it's been ever. And just looking at numbers, I know that we have numbers that say 81,000 plus people have died in this country. I know that we have numbers that say 81,000 plus people have died in this country.
Sure.
Spencer, I know that you don't have the same numbers I have.
What they're finding out is as these research is being done and they're going back. What they're finding out is as these research is being done and they're finding out and looking at actual death cause of death from opioids is being they're finding out underreported. The cause of death from opioids is being stop breathing, you can have a heart attack, there's all kinds of ways that you can die from opioids. And so what they're finding ways that you can die from opioids, there are many more. What they're finding, all that long story short is there are many more overdoses. Yeah, parents are embarrassed, and that's understandable. They don't want that on. Yeah, parents are embarrassed, and that's understandable. They don't want that on a record. People want to keep things private. I think 6 weeks.
Understandably.
But what that does, that's the macro. But what that does, that's the micro. Real overdose. We don't have a good understanding of how what the real overdose rate significantly higher. And so there's well over
100,000. That's what I've heard.
Higher.
And that's staggering numbers.
Well over 100,000.
Well over 100,000. That's what I've heard. Yeah. I want to thank the people that made this webinar possible. Central Florida Cares. I want to thank the people that made this webinar possible. Central Florida Cares, Health Southeast Florida Behavioral Health LSF Health Systems, and Southeast Florida Behavioral Health. Also, if you've missed any one of our webinars, this is the last one out of 9. Also, if you've missed, you can go onto our website and this is the last one out of 9. You can go onto our website, and now I'm going to introduce Spence Flider, who is the president and CEO I'm going to introduce Spence Flider, and I'm very excited to talk to him tonight of Central Care. And I look forward to be able to hearing more. And I'm very excited to talk to him tonight. Yes, sir. And I look forward to be able to hearing more about your system.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
So Central Care Missions started out as a homeless transition facility, and after a period of time, I started saying, "Why is everybody here homeless?" You know, you want to help them, you want to feed them, shelter them, make sure they have beds and are clean, but then you have to say, well, then why are they all here? And what became really evident very quickly is mental health and addiction. So then I said, well, if all we're doing is just housing them and shuffling them along, we're not really solving their problems or the problem. And so then we turned and looked at what we were doing is we were doing a kind of a rehabilitation center. We were dealing with the addiction issue, the substance abuse use, and that's good and that's what's needed. But then I had to say, well, wait a minute, ask a few more questions. Let's dig down. Why are they addicted? And once I really started asking all those questions, we didn't walk away from helping people get housing. And we didn't walk away from obviously helping them get off the addiction to the substance. What we did do is we focused on how to teach them how to live. And that kind of changes everything.
So life skills in general.
Correct.
That's awesome.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so Central Care Mission's been in existence for 31 years. It's in Washington Shores here in Orlando. We have a capacity for 50 men. It's a 1-year program. You have to really commit to a 1-year program minimum, and people might hear that, but what happens is we call them clients, people who are participating in our program. What happens is they will say when they get there, yeah, I'll commit to a year in the interview, and what they're saying in the back of their head is, there's no way I'm going to commit to a year. I just need a place to go right now. I need a place to lay my head. I need to detox. I need to kind of just calm down here. I'll get it figured out, and then I'm going to be gone in 2 months. I'm out. So what happens is when they come into the community and they see the guys and the friendship, and really it is a community. I don't use that lightly. And so as they begin to learn what it is that we're about and what we do, they choose to stay longer. And then at about 9 months after, when they're looking, oh, 3 months, I might be leaving. Then they had that moment of panic.
What am I going to do?
What am I going to do? And we're preparing them for what they're going to do.
Right.
But now they're going to start really looking at it. And so what happens is they come in and they knock on the door and they say, I've been here 9 months. We know that. We know this conversation. It happens all the time. And can I stay longer? And of course you can stay longer. Now we're really starting to get to where you don't feel like you have to be here. You want to be here. And now you're going to hunker down and you're going to really work on some very practical things. So people think a year is long, but it flies by so fast. And what I say is, if it took you 5 years to get lost in the woods, it's not going to take you 30 days to get out.
That's true. I know when I went to treatment, it took me a year and a half plus, just to be able to get back to some semblance of normalcy and be able to start thinking again.
The cobwebs come out, the cloud, the fogs go away, and you kind of like, oh man, I remember what this feels like to think halfway normal and to have any kind of understanding of how reality is around me.
And the emotional and the rawness that comes with it.
Correct. Correct. So we've been there 31 years. It's a 1-year program, and we help guys get jobs, and we'll go into that here. So the thing that kind of guides us is this phrase here, and it's a phrase that I say all the time: change a man's heart, change a man. Change a man, changes marriage. Changes marriage, and you change the family, and the kids are happier, and mom and dad and the in-laws, everybody's happier. Because here's what we do know is it's the person who's addicted to the substance creates havoc in everybody else's life. And when they are transformed and turning around, then the rest of the family can calm down and turn around. And so when you change a man's family and transform his family, then you transform the community. That's the thing that governs and guides everything we do. So how do we define success at Central Care Mission? So people, business owners and stuff, and politicians and just everybody, they come in, they see the program, and what they automatically jump to before, and I do this very presentation, and what they want to jump to real quick is, how do you define success? What's your success rate? And I say, well, first of all, let's determine what we're going to measure. And I say, what would you measure if you were running a drug and alcohol rehabilitation program? And they say, well, of course, someone's clean from a substance and they're sober from alcohol.
The bare minimum, right?
The bare minimum. And that's fairly easy to do in a program, because, you know, after 6 weeks or so, you are disengaged from the chemical part, but the rest of your life is shattered and in tatters. And so, yes, that's one way you measure success. Are you off the substances that you were addicted to? But that's not the only way. And so we have what we call the pillars of success, and there's 6 of them. And so the first one is the clean and sober that we talked about. And if that's all you focus on, and you have someone 30, 60, or even a year,
right?
If that's all you focus on in that year is just clean and sober, and you don't help a person put the rest of their life together, when they get out, they're not going to make it a day. They're not going to make it 2 days.
Relapse is imminent.
Relapse is imminent, and possible death because of the fentanyl, right?
Very true. Yeah. It's all
So how we move forward then is we help them get stable transportation or stable employment. And what we do is say, you have to own your life. We're not your mama. I teach a whole class. We're not your mama.
Mhm.
I ain't your mama. For a long time, you've been looking for someone to take care of you. When your parents quit taking care of you, then you went to the girlfriend. Think about this.
Mhm.
Then you broke the law and then you went to jail.
Mhm.
Who took care of you?
No.
They fed you, they took care of everything. Then you
Yep.
get out and then you're on unemployment or you're on subsidy. Who's taking care of you?
Mhm.
The government.
Perpetuates a cycle.
Yeah, then you come to Central Care Mission and you sit down there and we feed you and everything. It's like, oh, you're going to work
Mhm.
and you're going to own your life. And so it's really empowering. And so once they get that work ethic back in and get moving, it's very good.
How long do you put in usually for somebody? Is everybody different to get an employment, or do you have that certain set of time?
So great question. So what we do is we take each person individually.
Mhm.
So someone might come in and they've not used for a month, but they're just really struggling.
Mhm.
That person is ready to go to work the next day.
Right.
But if someone who rolls in there that maybe just came off of detox-free days and they've been running hard
Mhm.
and the cobwebs aren't gone, as you talked about,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
not functional and their
Mhm.
body's not responding well yet, we watch them and we wait until we are really sure that they can go to work and do a good job.
With the hopes of functioning properly within that employment.
Yeah, and so and we'll talk about the job aspect here in a minute. So, well, we're talking about now stable employment. So we can tell an employer you're going to be there. We're going to have your man there that's working for you on time. He's not going to be using any substance. And
Mhm.
they love that because there's so many substances on the work site.
Oh, yes.
And then we can tell them that we're matching the person to the skill. And they love that too. So that's a big deal. We do, when we bring them in for an interview, we find out all their job history. And so then we have a set of employers and then we say, hey, we got a guy here that can do this. Do you have an opening? And sometimes it takes us a day and sometimes it takes us a month. It just depends on the man
Depends on
and the
individual,
economy.
right?
I mean, you can imagine what it was like during the pandemic.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
we had 90, I think my wife told me we had like 90 to 92% employment throughout the pandemic.
That's
With all of our
impressive.
guys.
That's impressive.
Yep. And so they get a job. And so the next thing is they get to keep that job when they leave the right way. If they stay the year, they keep that job. Most of the people who stay a year, they end up getting healthcare benefits. They end up getting a 401k.
So it's building those lives, it's building on that life. It's one step at a time, but it's building it.
It's the things that you and I take for granted that they've never had and don't even understand that they need.
Mhm.
So then the next thing we do is we provide stable transportation. So we take them to work and get them back from work. Now that's why I'm the program, but what about when they leave the program? When they leave the program, we define stable transportation in 3 ways. Your own automobile.
Mhm.
And I think about 86 to 90% of our clients that stay a year or longer end up purchasing an automobile while they're there. And then if they have some alcohol, DUIs in the background, they can't get a license. And so when they can't get a license, then they have to either look at a bicycle or public transportation. And some guys will just get a scooter as well, because you can kind of fly under the radar.
A little bit easier.
Yeah. And so we help that. And so what we do is really, we teach them, you want to say to your employer, you can get to work on time every day and you have reliable transportation. Don't go buy a car for, $300 or $400. We help them buy good cars, sometimes $5,000 or $6,000 that are going to be reliable and going to last. So they, if you miss your job, you miss your work, then you miss where you live, and you miss where you live, what happens? And all of a sudden chaos happens, and then you're looking for the bottle, you're looking for a substance to make you feel better. So then, oops, I pushed that by accident. So the, dang it, sorry about that. So the next thing we do is we get into stable housing, and we've just started talking about that. What we teach them, Houston, is you have to own your housing, own the legal document to be there.
Okay.
That can be a lease. Don't rely on friends. Okay, come shack up over here. Don't rely on a girlfriend. You need to be able to have the stability that nobody can tell you to leave.
Self-sufficient housing.
That's correct, because you know as well as I do that the people, you're married, I'm married. To live with people is difficult,
Mhm.
and you have to have a commitment. But if you go live with people that aren't necessarily healthy, what happens? On a Friday night, things get bad, argument
Temptation.
happens. You might be doing well, the other person might not. Phone calls made to the police shows up and they say you hit somebody, and next thing you're in jail. What happens next? Then you lose your job.
Everything spirals back
It all
down.
spirals, and that's why we put stable, stable, stable.
Mhm.
The key to not relapsing and to making it long-term out of this is creating a stable life. And then stable relationships. How do we do that? Well, first of all, this is hard.
It's not easy.
You have to eliminate toxic relationships, and sometimes that's with the people that you love, the people that are in your family. If there are mean people, there are abusers, there are people who will support you, they won't hold you accountable, and that starts to be a really difficult thing. And so you have to remove those type of people out of your life if you're going to stay clean and sober.
Do you find that difficult with some of with the individuals being able to remove family members? That's got to be sometimes difficult.
Well, the family members are hard, and sometimes best friends are hard, and obviously girlfriends are hard.
That they've had for long periods of time.
Yeah, that they've had, and so the longer they're there, they start learning what healthy relationships are. We teach about codependence, we teach about interdependence, we teach about boundaries, we teach about all of those things, and what happens is then it starts going ding, 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 and they say, oh, I can't have those people in my life. So what we don't do is, they're not allowed to, and if you're listening to this and you're thinking about going to some place like Central Care Mission or at Central Care Mission, you're not allowed to call anybody for the first 30 days for the very reason we're talking about, is we don't need toxic people speaking into you and drawing you out. And then you're not allowed to have a cell phone for 6 months because, because it's very difficult as well. For people who've been there 6 months, when they get that cell phone, they have a big struggle for about the months 6 to 7 because Facebook, and then people are like, oh, hey, where you been, baby? And
all the different enticements.
Oh, I got a job, and oh, I'm saving my money. Oh, you do? Yeah. Remember when we were in love?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't need to be at that place. So the telephone, the phone, and social media is one of the biggest detriments.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
To being clean and sober. So we delay that. We don't push all those issues until it's time, till you've had some time to think and clear up and realize, I don't ever want to go back to where I was at.
And build a quality foundation, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. And then you start really hunkering down into some of the painful, touchy places where someone in the first month would say, oh, forget it. I'm not,
We're not touching that one.
Yeah, right. And if that's what you're about, I'm not about it. And so we just kind of take it incrementally, each person. The next is, so stable relationships, we talked about that. But here's what we do say is, you need to find new good relationships. And what are you going to do when you leave Central Care Mission a year, 16 months, and you're happy? You've got a job, you've been clean and sober. Your family's proud of you. You have a savings account. You're out of debt. Your physical body's in good shape. And you get out and you got your lease, and now it's Friday night.
Oh, temptation.
And you don't have any new friends.
Right.
That is the most critical moment in your life of recovery, is that Friday night. You're all alone. So first of all, and we'll get into this a little later, you have to learn how to be alone.
Difficult times. I remember being in that position myself.
Yeah.
The alone time, that first probably 6 months to a year.
Correct.
Was some of the scariest times because relapse was just right around the corner. Or doing something that was going to wreck all the work that I'd done was right around the corner.
It was really interesting when I got off of drugs and alcohol, and primarily drugs. Right after I graduated from high school, my parents had just gotten a divorce.
Oh.
My dad left. I just never saw him, and he was my hero. My mom was so wrecked emotionally from it, she just kind of just went crazy and just was never around. And I became a Christian, and I went back and told my friends, and they said, "Nuh-uh. Not around us, you ain't."
Okay.
Yeah. And so I spent a year virtually by myself,
Mm-hmm.
trying to recover, and you have to learn how to be alone in order to deal with that. So that Friday night, now that's difficult. And if you start to fall, you need to have good friends,
Mm-hmm.
clean friends, healthy friends, positive friends, friends that are available, friends that know your story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the time to call. So
That's
healthy
for sure.
relationships and stable relationships. And last is giving back to the community. And
Mm-hmm.
so what we do is we volunteer in the community to feed the homeless.
Mhm.
And most of the people who come in our program were once homeless. If you use long enough, you will be homeless.
Yes.
And so that is a constant reminder of where they've come from. And they see people who have not yet made the decision to get off the streets or to
Mhm.
come off the substance, and they see them, and then they go look in the mirror. They say, "Oh wow, I've come a lot further than I thought."
Because that reality hits you when you see somebody else in the spot they used to be.
That's correct.
Exactly.
And you wouldn't believe it. Some of our guys love. We do it at 6 o'clock in the morning. We go feed the homeless
Mm-hmm.
on Sunday at 6, and our guys, they love that,
Mm.
and they get very encouraged because now they're giving back. So the question is then, that's quite a high standard of success.
Mm-hmm.
When people walk in and say, what's your success rate? All they're asking about is pillar one,
Right.
clean. And no. If you just do this and you don't do this, this is not, number one's not happening.
Not for long
But
periods.
if you do these, this just perpetuates exponentially long-term recovery.
You build that buffer.
Correct.
Build a buffer of good habits.
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect. And do you have any questions or anything that might come up with what we've talked about, or no?
Not right now. No.
All right. So how do you get here? How do you get to this point from where you're just completely devastated, you're a wreck, mentally, emotionally, financially, relationally, your parents and everybody around you, they've given up. You've given up on yourself. You walk into a place like Central Care Mission. What do you do? And how do you get from that point to where this happens in about a year? So what we do is we teach the life skills. And what we simply say is it's pretty easy. Let me just, I'm going to say it and then I'm going to qualify it.
Mm.
Is it's coming to Central Care Mission, or even if you're an addict, the issue is not the substance.
So
And
true. Yeah.
the issue is not the substance, nor is your chemical addiction the issue. It is all the underlying components that drove you to do those decisions. And so what we want to do is we want to identify all the things that will help you put your life back together. One of the most devastating things about being addicted is despair
Mm-hmm.
and hopelessness and meaninglessness and failure.
Mm-hmm.
Those just crush you.
Mm-hmm.
And they crush you to such an extent that you just most people just say, the heck with it, I'm going to go use again because I don't like this feeling.
Because they don't see a way out,
Correct.
Yeah.
So when they come to the Central Care Mission, what we do is we talk about the spiritual life skill. Basically, instead of despair, there's life. Instead of hopelessness, there's hope. Instead of meaninglessness and all the bleakness that all you see, after a while, what happens is, you start seeing the sun again. You actually see the beauty of the clouds. We're on a lake. You see the water. And all of a sudden you start seeing beauty and you start seeing other people and you start laughing again. You say, life is worth living. And so the spiritual life skill is where we deal with those things of hope, a meaning and purpose, presence. There's we're a Christian organization, but we don't shove that down anybody's throat. But we do let them know that, hey, there's a God and he really loves you. Oh, and by the way, he made you and he likes who he made. And now let's give God permission to do in your life what he's always wanted to do.
What do you do in that situation? Because naturally pushback happens in a spiritual nature regardless, right?
Yeah. So we never shove that down anybody's throat. If someone says to me at any time in the program, I'm not really into that, it just makes me really uncomfortable, I'll ask a few questions, kind of dig a little bit, but never number one, say you have to believe a certain way to be here. Never.
Don't put a contingent upon that.
No way.
Never.
No way. And we have people who are atheists. We have people who are all other religions come in, and I love that. You know,
But they believe, but ultimately it's believing in something.
well, you'd be surprised. Some people, just say they don't,
Okay.
and you just don't fight that. But here's what I have found, and people might not like this, but I found that the ones who actually make it long-term are the ones who do come to that understanding that there's somebody out there besides themselves, and they are much bigger, and they're not bad, they're good.
Yeah, the only reason I say that,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry interrupting, but it was some struggle that I didn't get all through the 4 different rehabs until the 5th rehab that I went through. That I get that I go, oh gosh, this is something bigger than me.
Right.
I can't do this without somebody else.
Right.
Right. And that came with more than just the person next to me or having a friend. It was a spiritual awakening in a sense. Yeah.
And it's very powerful.
It is.
It's very powerful. I call it the light switch that's been off for a long time.
Yeah, it was off.
Yeah, and Jesus says, I am the light. He says that for a reason. And other teachers, spiritual teachers have said that as well. And that's that illumination that comes on. Let's talk just a minute about what happens if someone says they don't believe. It's a very interesting thing, isn't it? Because you were a little, you were a little stunned to say, well, someone would say, oh, I just don't believe any of that, right? And that's okay. But I think a person owes it to themselves to ask why they don't believe. I'm not going to shove anything down your throat, but
let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it. And I'm an atheist. Okay, good. Let's talk about it. Now, are you an intellectual atheist? Are you an emotional atheist? Are you an existential atheist? Or are you a moral atheist? And their head starts spinning.
But
okay?
different.
But yeah, and so if they can't answer that question, they're not an intellectual atheist, because that's a very complicated question to explain to somebody intellectually why you're an atheist from a philosophical point of view. I just use these words from epistemology and metaphysics. That's an intellectual atheist. I've met very, very few.
Right.
Okay. Then you have the emotional atheist, and this is a person that says, and I get it. All of us have said, there's so much suffering in the world.
How can there be?
How can there be a good God that created this and allows this to happen? And so what happens is when you get down into it, and then you start, and here's the source of their addiction, you start getting down into their suffering and into their pain and what hurt them, or their wife died, or their child got cancer. Okay, all these things that makes a person feel, and then you turn from the emotional pain, you turn to substances to make you feel better.
It's filling that hole.
And so what we try to do is let's say, okay, good, I understand that. I think a lot of bad things happen, man. And then so we work down through that, and it's really interesting when you give people a safe place to talk about their suffering, their hurt, their loss, their grief. When you give a person, and then they start healing from that, then they start saying, oh well, I haven't talked to God for a long time, but I talked to him last night. You know what I'm saying? So what you do, and so they don't believe in God. They believe in God really, but they're so daggone mad of what's happened in their life that they just want to say, I don't believe in it.
I'm believing, or I'm mad at you, God.
And what I tell them is, why don't you go in a room, and we're taking a little time on this, but I think it's really good. I tell them, go in the closet, go out on the lake, go somewhere alone, and just tell God, just let him have it.
Yeah.
Just let him have it. How angry you are, I said, do you think that you're going to destroy God by that? Do you think he stops loving you? And so what happens is they unload all that, right? And so we can walk. So what I help them do is walk down through different forms of unbelief. And almost 99% of the people who come out of there, they don't come out of there Christians, because that's not my goal. My goal is to help them. But they do come out of there with a sense of a bigger picture than what they walked into, that there's somebody out there who heals them, loves them, cares for them, made them. And it's just so powerful.
It is. It's amazing.
So that's the first spiritual life skill. We do, and I'll just talk about that a little bit more. We do silence and solitude.
Okay.
We'll have nights where everybody gets off work at 6, they come out of the vans, and we do circle up, and then guess what? Nobody talks till the next morning when they get on the van to go to work. And so you think of 35, 50 guys, and everybody's quiet.
Mm.
Everybody. Be like us being in this room for the next 12 hours.
Meditate on your day and
Yeah. And so what happens is all this stuff comes bubbling up. The stuff you've been shoving down, the memories you don't like, also guilt, shame, all that stuff comes up, and you have to learn to deal with that. We're not putting shame on people because of what their substance abuse disorder, but they feel incredibly ashamed about what they did while they were abused or why they were using. And so all this bubbles up in silence and in solitude. And then you just begin to just take little pieces. Then we have journaling. Now, while you're quiet, write down what you're feeling and thinking. No one's going to see it. Don't worry about your grammar. Don't worry about if it's understandable to anybody but you. But you write down what you've been through, what you're feeling, and what you need, and just offload your soul onto a piece of paper. And you'd be just amazed how transformative that is. And I just call that, the class is called Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. When I teach about journaling, that thing is a mirror that shows you exactly who you are, where you're at, what you've done, and also where you're headed.
That's amazing.
So
I utilize journaling plenty going through the processes.
Do you still have those?
Oh, I have every single one through the years. And I'm talking 15 plus years of
Do you
journaling.
still journal?
I still journal, not as much as I used to.
Right. Awesome.
You know, but it still is a functional method for me to be able to get thoughts out and also work through other issues.
Yeah, it's just like any other habit. If you drop it for a little bit, you can come back to it.
It's like riding a bike.
Correct. That's correct. And journaling is hard to learn.
Oh,
It's like riding a bike. You stumble and fall, and you write, and then all of a sudden
you pick it up.
You hit it, and you hit the stride, and you're like, okay, now I'm really talking about what's in my soul. The physical life skill.
I know that's very important to you.
Yes, this is huge. So people either come in to Central Care Mission obese and pre-diabetic. Alcohol is one big contributing factor, or they come in and they're completely emaciated. I mean, grown men, 135 pounds, 127 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, they come in just emaciated and gaunt. And so what we do is we say, well, let's begin to put your life back together, your physical life. The first thing we do is let them rest. Then, and we'll talk a little bit more about sleep, but eating properly we are huge about eating properly. So we have a good chef. We have good food.
Plus.
Yeah. If it's bad food, I don't eat.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're going to have good food. So here's how we handle food. And this is a discipline. And all these things are transferable, not only for a person who has substance abuse disorder, but every person.
Of course.
Okay. So protein. Low carb. I didn't say no carb.
But low carb.
Low carb. Vegetables. Fruit. Portion control. And eliminate as much sugar as you can possibly eliminate from your diet. That's how we handle it. And so two things happen is all these good nutrients from the vegetables and the fruit and the protein from the meat, they start getting their muscular skeletal framework back. They start to get healthy at a cellular level, at a body level. They start gaining weight. And then our administrator, she's been working there, I think 3 years.
Okay.
She's the only, my wife works there, and she's the only other female. And she works in the office, and she hears us talking about this stuff, all these life skills.
Right.
And she tells this story, and she's told it publicly, and she's done TikTok. So I'm not betraying any of her trust. She came in, she weighed 300 pounds when she started to work for us. And all of a sudden we started noticing she was losing weight. She said, I've been listening. And she's lost, I think 105 pounds in the last year.
That's amazing.
By just the osmosis of practicing and hearing what we say and taking care of that.
When I went into my last facility, I couldn't walk.
Wow.
I was over 420 pounds.
Right.
All just from doing drugs every day and living a sedentary lifestyle. I hated myself.
Right.
But once I started to get being able to just see myself differently, it's getting all those bad, shameful thoughts, all those
Right.
horrible things that will keep you and drag you down. I finally started to start walking again, doing a little exercising
Yes.
more, because my thought was, well, I'm crippled, I'm going to stay that way.
Right.
And that's not true.
You're 30 years old and you're already, your body's a disaster.
Exactly. And that was the mindset that I had to lose in order to conquer my own shameful thinking.
And what people don't understand is your body can really be wrecked and it can repair itself in an amazing way. So we do food, then we do exercise. We have, and this is all stuff that's transferable to you at home and in your own personal lifestyle. And if you're trying to recover yourself, or if you have recovered and you're wondering what your next best steps can be at home, is you need to get in an exercise regimen. You need to find some people who are going to do whatever find what you love to do. I don't care if it's skateboarding, I don't care if it's standing on your head or jumping a pogo stick.
Right.
Whatever it is you love to do, find some other people who love to do it. And with social media, it's so easy. And get out there with people and do it 3 times a week.
Vitally important. Yep.
With your heart rate above 65% for 35 to 45 minutes. Why is that key? Because at 35 to 45 minutes, your body begins to create its own endorphins. And endorphins is simply endogenous morphine. What? Wait a minute, I thought we were talking about opioid crisis. So the people who come into Central Care Mission who are addicted to opioids, they're sitting there and they're like, man, I got to get back out on the street. I'm freaking out here. I need some opioids. I need drugs. And what we say after they've been there and we know they can do it, and it might be a day, it might be 2, it might be 5. Oh, now you're in our exercise, get out there and exercise. And they do it, their heart rate goes up, and they come in and like,
this is amazing.
That was really hard, but man, I feel high. It's like, well, yeah, you kind of are, but you're high in all the right way. You're high from the morphine, an opiate that's created by your brain that is non-addictive. How did God decide to make that?
Right.
And it makes you healthy.
But that doesn't get made when you're using artificial
No,
substances, right?
does not. Well, I'm not sure about all that. I don't know about that.
Okay.
Certainly doesn't get made as much. I mean, you said you lived a sedentary lifestyle.
That's my point, yeah.
Right, yeah. Sitting on the couch, I'm sorry.
Right.
There's no morphine except what you're putting in your
That was
body from the
basically
outside. They call that exogenous.
Yes.
Exogenous morphine. So anyhow, physical health, that would be, and then we deal with sleep. Because sleep is a big deal. People who are addicted to substances, the nighttime is when everybody else goes to bed, and their habits flip. The daytime is the light is when you hide, the night is when you come out. And so what we help them do is flip that and give them very practical examples. What we call that a chronological time clock or your circadian rhythms. And how do you sleep? Learn how you sleep. Learn why you might wake up at 3 a.m. for an hour. It's not because you're messed up. It's you need to learn how to cope with that. Did you drink coffee at 7 o'clock at night?
Right. Learn what's got you off.
That's
right?
correct.
Yeah.
Sleep. So these are just some of the things that we deal with, and also medication. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. People will come to Central Care Mission from detox centers, and they are so over medicated. It is unbelievable. I mean, 7 or 8 prescriptions and
have them zonked.
Oh yeah, they just come in and in the interview they're slobbering all over the place. They can't think. And I'm like, I always, when we do this, and I'm not in the interviews that often, but whenever I am, it's like, let's find out what the medications they gave him when he came out of detox. Oh, whoa. So we help them get off the wrong medications,
right?
Get them to a doctor to recalibrate, get them on right medications with the proper dosages. And then here's the other thing is find out if they can come off of them. Because ultimately, we do not none of us want to be on medications with all the side effects, which moves us into the issue of supplementation. And so what we're big on You can't do that when you first get there, but as these guys start to graduate and they're making good money and they have a savings account, then they start, we do a Walmart run and they start getting all the supplements, and we help them with amino acids. So there's 4 ways you get energy. One is sugar. That's not the one you want.
Not the healthy one, no.
No. Amino acids is the other. So we say, hey, let's get on essential amino acids. And then there's omega fatty acids, which your brain and your heart and your liver just eat that a lot. They want that. It's just like food. It's like fertilizer, and it just makes your brain come on fire at a mitochondria level. And then the last one is ketones. And so we don't get into ketogenic diet there.
Right.
But if you've never done a ketogenic
I
diet,
have, yes,
they are
sir.
so powerful.
They are.
And so what we do is we just help people supplement towards body health. But that does 2 things. That helps them rewire their brain from a neuroplastic point of view. Thank you. And that helps them also reset their mitochondria at a cellular level. So if you're taking all these toxins, you're eating junk food, you're eating processed food, you're eating all this bad stuff, including taking the substances that you're addicted to that are poisoning you. At a cellular level, your cells are really compromised. No wonder you don't feel good. No wonder you don't have energy. No wonder you're thinking cloudy. Then you have neurotransmitters that are all going to your brain saying, use. And the more you don't use, the louder that voice gets. And so we just kind of deal with those neurotransmitters. So we can move past that. Anything you want to talk about that? Any questions or thoughts?
For the physical side, the amount of aspect that I wrecked my body to get back to it.
Right.
Do you ever have individuals that come in and obviously, let's say they're not disabled,
Correct.
but that they're so out of shape? How do you deal with that? Is there ever a time that you'd utilize physical therapy, something along those lines?
So great question. Couple things. We have a guy that I'm going to say Kay is his name.
Okay.
Kay came in. He's been in a bunch of programs. Smart kid. Worked at Microsoft.
Okay.
I'm not sure what he did there, but he's a smart kid and an IT guy. But went through a divorce. In and out of rehab, and he was there about 3 or 4 days, and we're sitting out on this bench by the lake, and I'm over there lifting weights, and he's sitting there. He's way overweight. I don't even know, maybe 380, something like that. Big guy. And he's kind of looking at me, and we're talking, and I'm saying, what are you going to do different this time? And he didn't know what to answer. I says, yeah. You know what to answer. I said, well, you're going to stay here a year and then go to another one? You're in your 30s, dude. Go look at the guys that are in their 50s and 60s that are here. I said, why don't you lose weight? Don't worry about your addiction. Why don't you focus on losing weight? Focus on that. He just shredded the weight. He couldn't walk.
Oh, wow.
His feet, the arches of his feet were collapsed. His ankles were hurt. And he couldn't hardly walk. Now he's working a physical job at a construction site. He's lost so much weight. He just went and weighed himself. He just lost 10 more pounds.
Oh my gosh.
He's following exactly what we said to do. And he's like, my life is changing.
And he can see that, and he feels that change. Not only is it emotional, it's feeling as well.
So watch this. Addiction, we use substances to drown everything that is causing us some sort of pain, right? Pain is the issue. Past pain, past loss, past grief, hurt, abandonment, betrayal, adultery, all these things create pain in our life. Most people don't set out to become an addict.
No,
they don't.
Nope.
The research shows that, when prescription drugs became available through surgeries, dental procedures, and all this, that then all of a sudden we had this proliferation of people who began to use wrongly. But here's kind of how it happens, is you go to the dentist and you get a bottle for a pulled tooth. I just had a tooth pulled that chipped right in half, and they just gave me, I think it was naproxen.
Right.
Okay.
Anti-inflammatory.
And I was okay.
Yeah.
But they give a bottle, and a person takes it because they think they're in pain. They take it for a couple days. But as they take it, the first time it's just because they're scared to death, this thing's going to keep throbbing. Then they can take it the next day, just in case I'm going to take another one. But then that evening on the second night, they take another one because they really don't need it, but it kind of made them feel good. Now watch this, it's very careful. It's not that it made them feel good, it's that it eliminated them feeling bad. Now, when you pull a tooth, or if someone says to you, I hate you, or you're unfriended on Facebook, those all register at the same place in your brain, the anterior insula. If you take a picture of the brain, cut a person's finger off, or you tell them you're leaving them and you're divorcing them, all to the same place. So that, yeah, isn't that amazing?
It's amazing.
It just registers the same way. So that if I'm giving you Oxycontin to take care of your physical pain, and all of a sudden now it's taking care of your emotional pain,
yeah.
now you're using it for a completely different reason. And now you're hooked. Because now it feels good. It's not eliminating pain.
Now it's a true crutch.
That's correct.
Yeah, exactly.
And then very quickly, your body becomes chemically dependent upon it. And then here's the subtle part. And then the thing that it was eliminating, pain, it flips and now it creates it.
Exacerbates it, of course.
Right.
I remember exactly when I started feeling it.
Yeah, right.
Terrible.
And it's like, oh my, what is going on? It's the worst nightmare.
It is.
Right.
It is.
Do you remember when you first started using and you felt like, oh wow, this feels normal?
Yeah, I remember when the first time that I ever felt that something was really wrong was when I had to take a pain pill to leave the house.
Right.
And it wasn't because of pain. It was the fact that I just was like, oh, it was so normal before. And then all of a sudden I go, this isn't right.
Right.
Right. But it was normal.
Right.
And then it just became more normal. And it was like, well, this is just part of my life.
Right.
Because you just want to justify and you just simplify it.
Yep. So that's how addiction happens. So emotion, we started getting into it, didn't we?
We
The
did.
emotional at the heart of it is pain. And so one of the things we do is we have them, I said, I ain't your mama.
Right.
To teach that class. It's about a 9-week class. And what happens there is what I do is I go through the whole childhood development from prenatal all the way to the time you leave high school. And I say, here's how life is supposed to work. Now, these guys have been through brutal lives. And a lot of us have.
Of course.
A lot of us had some horrendous things happen to us in our childhood. And so what I do is I say, here's how life is supposed to work. And it's a pretty spectacular picture of if we as humans really treated each other right.
Right.
How it's supposed to work and development is supposed to happen and relationships and moms and dads are supposed to love each other and families are supposed to function.
Unit works together, right?
Yeah. You're raised up, you get educated, you're taught discipline, you're given boundaries, no one's enabling you to be misbehave, all these psychological dynamics. And so what I do is I paint this picture and I say, how many of you have had a life like that? And they just look at me.
You're like, seriously?
Yeah. Well, what planet are you from? Well, the truth is, number one, none of us have had that kind of life.
Right.
And they don't understand that. And I said, do you think you're the only one? Everybody's life has had trauma and broken families and abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse. Many people have been sexually abused by dads, grandpas, uncles, whatever. Both males and females.
Oh, yes.
And so we kind of get down through that. And then we say, okay, now let's go back and put on your timeline, because I have them create a
wonderful tool.
A developmental timeline. I say, where did your pain happen? Each one. And then I say, now, how old are you? And they'll say, oh, I'm 35, I'm 50. No, wait a
No,
minute.
how old are you?
How old were you when this happened? Because chances are you become emotionally and psychologically stunted at that point.
Mhm.
Now, here's what puts a life back together. You can't just say that's going away. You can't just say, oh, I'm never going to think about it. You can't put a needle in your arm to make it go
No.
away. But
Mhm.
that's why people use, right?
Mhm.
So if that's why they use, let's go back and let's really start where you stopped.
Mhm.
Thank you. Let's go back where you stopped and let's begin to help you put your life together. Do you wonder why all you,
From that epicenter, right?
that's correct.
Right.
And then what we do is then, okay, what should happen? Well, you should have been protected.
Mhm.
You should have been loved, or you should have been held accountable that you didn't do your homework.
Mhm.
And so what at that point of trauma is when middle schoolers mostly turn to sex,
Mhm.
drugs, alcohol, rebellion,
Mhm.
and then off they go to the races.
Mhm.
And so we go back and reset their entire life from an emotional point of view.
I can literally tell you from my emotional point of view where my life changed. My parents' divorce,
Right,
then culminated with surgeries.
correct.
It was in that time frame that everything went, and everything you just said, rebellion, drugs, sex, all
All
involved,
of it.
all of it.
And so when you got the medicine for your back surgery from playing football,
Uh-huh.
it took care of the pain of the divorce.
It did.
And then, so then now you're dual using,
Oh, yeah. Then, that was for sure.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's a dual diagnosis.
Mhm.
And so very powerful, right? And so that's what we do here. Financial life skill.
Mhm.
So these guys have never, and might I say, most Americans have never learned financial intelligence.
No.
They don't just look at our debt, look at our credit card use, just look at where we're at, even in our government.
Mhm.
Um,
Definitely
it's-
not good representations. No,
right, no.
not at all.
And so it's never taught. So what we do is we just sit down and we start teaching financial literacy.
Mhm.
Number one, get a job, not just any job, but get a job you love. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But number two, start identifying all your debt.
Mhm.
We have people who haven't driven for 15 years because they didn't want to pay their driver's license
Mhm.
or they thought it was too much.
Mhm.
We've had people who didn't drive for 15 years because they thought they owed $10,000 to the department, highway department, the Department of Highway, whatever, the people who give the driver's license. They go in and guess what? They didn't owe any money.
Exactly.
And they didn't drive for 15 years because they were afraid. They were afraid someone was going to arrest them or they were going to be punished or brought back to jail because they didn't pay some tickets and they're off their record. We've had other people who have gone in and they've owed $8,000, $2,000, $500.
Mhm.
And guess what we say?
Start chipping away.
Start paying it.
Yeah.
And you ought to see their face when they come in and say, and every one of them go like this. And I know what they're doing. It's their license.
It's their license.
And they haven't driven.
I know.
Yeah, they
It's
have.
building those prideful aspects of life.
Right.
You know.
So we help them eliminate that debt and then we help them look at their credit score and they begin tick tock, eliminating all of their debt.
Unbelievable.
And then once they eliminate their debt, guess what happens? When you have no debt and you're still getting a paycheck and you're not spending your money, what do you have?
You have savings.
You have money left over, right?
Yeah.
My guys have more money in the bank than probably 90%, each of them individually, probably more than 90% of all Americans.
Because
The average savings is between $7,000 and $10,000.
oh, then yes, then that stands true.
Yeah, that does. I mean, you might want to fudge with me on the numbers, but I dare you.
Yeah.
Okay,
But because most people have never been taught.
that's
You're teaching
correct.
life skills.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And so we've had guys 50 years old that never used a debit card.
Jeez.
Didn't know how to do it.
Right.
Never had a bank account.
Mhm.
Didn't know. So we teach them all this. Now watch, vocational. Okay. Vocational is it comes from the Latin word called vocare. How many minutes we got? Boom. 7. Perfect. So comes from vocare, right?
Mhm.
Which means calling. So if there's a God and he made you and likes you and loves you, and he made you a certain way and designed you, then guess what? You have a certain thing you're going to bring to the planet Earth.
Right.
Find out what that is, turns you on, makes you come alive, what you love, what everybody else says, man, you're good at that. Why don't you know, find that. That's your calling. Now, here's what guys do. They come in, they say, oh, I need help. I need a place to live and I need food and I want to get off drugs. And about 2 days later, they say, you haven't got me a job yet. And I said, what are you here for? If you want a job, go dig the ditch out back here and I'll pay you $2 an hour to dig the ditch. You want that job? No. Oh, so now let's talk about the job you really want.
Exactly.
So what we do is we help them dislodge themselves from any job and just making minimum wage to finding the right job and making a great wage.
Start building some aspect of a career, what you want to do with
That's
yourself.
correct.
Exactly.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And you know, some guy might love to sit behind a computer and another guy might like to lay top. Whatever it is, let's find out what it is. So what we do is we teach those life skills, and those are the things that produce the outcomes,
So within
the pillars of success. So that's what we do, man.
that is fascinating.
So it's
Thank
all,
you.
yeah.
You know, truly amazing how much goes into it, because I know that you've been working on this for a long time. and
13 years.
13 years. Question for you. I know we talk about when you say success rate.
Sure.
You know, how many people have graduated through your program?
Oh, man.
It's a tough number.
So here's the deal, is for so long I ran it by myself.
I know you did.
And so I couldn't keep track of that. I could barely keep their name straight some days.
Right.
And so what we're having is, due to COVID, people not being able to go, what they've done is they've stayed.
Oh, wow.
And our success rate is really going up through the roof, and guys are just doing really, really
Longer
well.
period of time.
The longer you stay, the longer you will stay, the greater your
Yep,
success.
higher chance of success.
Yeah.
That is the truth.
So, man, thank you. Thank you guys for allowing me just to share. And if you're out there and you need help, find help in a good program. Doesn't have to be Central Care Mission. Find help in a good program.
And I just want to say thank you once again to Central Florida Cares Health Network and LSF Health Network and Southeast Florida Behavioral Health Network. Just thank you. And I want to thank everybody that joined us as well. And also, please, I don't want people to forget to go back online, go to projectopioid.org and look at soon to be this. This one will be on there as well. And the other ones that you were part of as well.
Well, you can visit centralcaremission.com.
Okay.
Or call 407-299-6146.
And I urge people, if you need help, please reach out to the number Spencer gave you, or to the place or the entities that we spoke of.
Yep.
And I just want to thank everybody for joining us once again. Thank you.